Hello again. I think this is working. Yeah, okay. So, like I said, I was going to make some more videos as time went on. Sorry, it's been so delayed. My life takes turns everywhere. It was my son's first birthday, so I had to spend a lot of time planning. Anyways, I digress. So, today, what I wanted to talk about, like I said in the last video, was the avatar Jesus. If you don't want to call him Avatar, you could call him Yeshua, Sananda. There's so many names people have come up with over the course of history. So choose whatever name reflects your vibe. Um, the reason why I wanted to bring him up was because when I first started on my journey back when I was 18 years old and I was first seeing my number. One of the first messengers I ever saw or met told me to look up my number, which was 316, and the proverb or the line that associated with it was God so loved the world, so he sent his only begotten Son. And that thwarted me to learn more about Jesus. I was raised Catholic, but I didn't follow doctrine. I didn't really attend church as much as I should have. I wasn't a church goer, even though my Portuguese and Irish side were both avid churchgoers. I found it to be somewhat hypocritical, at least when I was young, and I didn't really follow much as I got older in my early teens. So when this number started following me everywhere, and I started having to really delve into it from more, I found more of a historical side of things because I really wanted to know the guy, as a guy. I think that's when things changed for me, at least for how I saw things and the message, and started to really warm up to Jesus and realize who he, or tried to realize who he was more so as a man. So that's kind of what I wanted to touch upon today. There's a couple of things that, most of us have a King James Bible. You can find a lot of his works and his words within that Bible, even reflectively looking back at you without having to find an older version like Aramaic or ancient Greek version of Bible. A lot of his parables are quite translatable and well regarded even now. So when I was on my journey and I went after Jesus, I think he was my first, I want to say, friend that I found on my journey, because when I started realizing that there was a lot of things that I didn't notice the first time, like even reading the Bible and reading more about the history, the Qumran scrolls. There's a bunch of different Thomas, Philip. There's other Mary Magdalene's writings. There's more writings that never made it into the Bible. So you could research all of that and find Jesus within them, but you could even find them in the regular King James Version. So as I was starting out, why I think Jesus was so important was because, one, he was a freedom fighter. That's something that a lot of people don't really pay attention to. He was always going against social norms. He was always going against his own Judaistic doctrine to prove that there was a way through heart and love that would over and supersede any, I would say, man-based doctrine that wasn't from his father, as he put it a lot in the King James Version. The reason why I want to touch upon his humanity is because it was something that was really not paid attention to at all in the Bible. Repeatedly, they referred to him as the son of David, and yet that's not glorified at all. That would have made Jesus a prince probably a prince of the line of David. Mary most likely would have been a queen of some sort and or a concubine of some sort. She would have been higher class had she had, been with David. So the fact that Herod wanted all the first males dead was a very clear sign that Jesus not only, they made it seem like, oh, they knew about the Messiah and all that. Yes, there is scripture that did detail that, but also at the same time, he was the son of David, meaning he was of royal lineage. lineage. Sorry. And that's something that's very not talked about within Jesus's life. Jesus would have been taken away from that to protect him. So most likely Joseph would have been perhaps a knight of some sort, or somebody of the court that was assigned to protect Jesus and keep him, kind of like low key. To protect him from people like Herod and or the Romans that were after power at that time, and to quiet and or eliminate a prince, especially of a divine and priestly right. Joachim and Boaz, like he was the two pillared god king in a sense, or supposed to be endowed that even just as a human, like aside from the whole godly side of it. So Jesus, in his upbringing, he most likely would have been going to mystery schools, probably in Egypt and in India. That was not far-fetched, because princes, kings, all of them were very well taught, and they went to the best schools, just like they do today. So it's not far-fetched that Jesus would have been gone for most of his life. That's why you don't really hear about him in the Bible that much. He was probably off. There are writings of a man similarly described in both of those lands, Babaji, etc. So this leaves us to understand that Jesus left when he came back in his 30s, or late 20s to 30s, and started preaching. He actually was coming to people not only as the rabbi, or the teacher. He was also relinquishing his princely designation, because he was roaming Galilee and parts of Jerusalem, etc., not with a horde of people behind him. That, like, he had his flock, right? But they lived very meagerly. They followed an Essenic tradition, so they were very much to the caves and to the land, and they were very, dedicated, hermetic in a sense, and dedicated to the word. So Jesus was relinquishing his princely rights and his money, basically, to then follow his godly given destiny. So he relinquished. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. When I was learning more about Jesus, I realized, like, wow, like, as a man, like, he gave up a lot. To give up your stature, in times like that, when that would have meant everything. He gave up his estate in a sense, and that's a huge move for a person, let alone, just the average person. So that made me realize that there was this saying that he was always like, the meek shall inherit the earth. So I think when he was supposed to be endowed with these riches and this stature, he had to kind of gear himself towards a more ascetic, hermetic life, because in order to be closer to your I am presence, you can't be like overshadowed with things like greed or money, and kind of like be brought up in the rat wheel that we're all living in order to really truly, connect, meditate, etc., with the all. So Jesus was trying to show us, like, you got to give that stuff up. That's number one. Have enough for your means, but don't go after these I don't know. I don't want to say, like, don't go after money. What I'm trying to say is, like, money is liquid. It is what it is for what its means are, and don't go after more, because it's never going to fulfill you. And if you want to get close to God, you kind of have to, like, repel all of that kind of way of thinking, way of being, because that actually gets you closer to understanding that the universe kind of takes care of you in a sense, and things will be provided regardless of trying to go after money and wealth and objects. So you have to cast that. Moses even talked about that too after the Exodus, where he was like, don't, waste your time with idols. So it's kind of along the same lines. So that was a very interesting note about Jesus. So when you're trying to move towards a more fine-lined life towards ascension, or to opening up and connecting with the I am presence, that is a very big key. Okay, I gotta stop. Okay, take two. About Jesus part two, because my son woke up and I had to combine videos. So like I said, to relinquish the earthly monetary system and try to just find something that you're good at or something that doesn't take you far away from your heart space, and try to make money within your means for what you need. Aside from that, he wasn't really big on having worldly possessions. The other thing I kind of adopted after that was trying to understand that Jesus was a big, predominantly driving force when it came to faith. That's something I struggle with even on a daily basis. Even after everything I saw, I think that was one of my bigger flaws. But Jesus was always healing people, and there's my son. Jesus was always healing people, and he was always basically chalking it up to the person's faith. So there is this sense that all of us have the ability to heal in some way, shape, or form. We just have to believe in ourselves, and the healing will begin. That was something that he did with lepers, some other sickly people that were brought to him throughout his time. If you notice, he always was very adamant about understanding the faith that the person possessed, or the person that was asking for his help possessed, in order to heal. So there is an aspect there that any one of us can heal. However, we need to have complete faith that the healing will occur. And I mean, that's kind of like how we are now, right? So realistically, even when we're trying to find our way with our astral body and our regular 3D body, a lot of it is mental, and a lot of it has to do with our inner beliefs. So Jesus was trying to explain to us that we are kind of our own healers, and sometimes we don't need to look to the medical world in order to heal ourselves, not just from a physical malady, but also from a emotional malady, because it's our faith and our request out to the universe that kind of helps heal us in a sense. So that was another thing I wanted to touch upon, was that that faith can thwart our ability. Like, we all have the ability to do a lot that Jesus could have accomplished, primarily only as long as we had faith, not just in him, but in ourselves, in our I am presence. So that was something else I wanted to touch upon, that I realized as time went on. I think the more faith I had, the more I began to see, and like third eye perspective, because sometimes I used to think like Jesus could have even been somebody from the future, and he came back to the past, and maybe he had all these doohickeys and ways of technology that these people didn't understand, but that's a different conversation. But realistically, he said that faith was the main clencher, was the main thing that any of us needed in order to perform these miracles. Just like he did, he was always adamant that we were brothers and sisters, that in order to find God, we didn't have to go very far. Basically, that God was within ourselves, which he is, she is. I say he, she, because my own personal, and regardless of what the book says, that's what I saw, so I can't really go against that. Uh, and then another thing I wanted to touch upon with Jesus was also that he was a freedom fighter. He was going into synagogues. He was trying to start up stuff. He was trying to tell people, like, don't introduce, monetize my father. Like, he was really big on putting people straight. He was also very big on telling people that were wayward that everyone deserves love, and that we all need to love ourselves. And that's very clear in the parable about the lost sheep, that we are like that wayward sheep that goes out of the flock and doesn't follow sometimes. And no matter what happens, Jesus and God, or ourselves, we need to accept ourselves and love ourselves and know that we are accepted. And that's another thing that we have to hold true through Jesus's teachings. Another thing I just want to point out, just because people are like, oh, why relate him to a human? What's so big about that? Like, a lot of people like persecute themselves for things like, a lot of priests don't get married, they don't have children. They follow these traditions from like what a man created, but yet sometimes it's like if you just really read into your books, it kind of outlines there that getting married, especially from a Hasidic tradition, like it was very common. At least after the men would go off into the mount and meditate or take off for a year or two, they would come back to their tribe and they would procreate. So it's very odd that like a lot of priests and everything hold their persecution so tightly and that sin so strongly when it was pretty clear in the Bible that he got married. So I could never understand that. And I'm just gonna go into this because I feel like this is something that people don't realize, like again with the humanization thing about Jesus. The wedding at Cana, okay? I'm gonna give you just a quick example. Um, Jesus didn't go around town to town making wine for everybody, okay? Everyone looks at that story and says, oh, Jesus turned water into wine, okay? That's not the point of that story. Really, really isn't. If you actually think about it, let's even use today as an example. When would somebody go to a person at a wedding and ask and tell them, hey, we ran out of booze? 9 times out of 10, if you are going to tell that story to somebody, it better be the person throwing the party. Because they're the only ones that are really going to do anything about it, and it's only their problem. So if people couldn't even relate that even on a simple humanistic scenario that happens to everybody, that I found very, very interesting. Because, sorry guys, realistically, like, Jesus wasn't going town to town churning water into wine. He was healing people, but that was probably the first time anyone saw that. But no one ever put it together that perhaps the reason why people went to Jesus was because it was his wedding. He was the one throwing it. That's why people went to him when the problems arose with booze, because he was the man to talk to. He easily, in a place full of wine, could have gone anywhere and got some wine. So the fact that like people make it seem like, oh, he's some spontaneous healer, we got to go to him, they could have gone anywhere to get vats of wine, but they didn't bother with that. They bothered going to the head of the party, which was him. So that's something so simplistic that people never put together. And it's like, yeah, he got married, he had kids, probably he lived a normal life, but that's not what he found. God as a human, going through life as a human. Maybe he had some downloads, maybe he had some things that just, propelled him further faster, and he knew what his like life path was because of his connection. But it's like, don't people realize like he was just a regular dude living a regular life, and aside from many things, he had a regular life in the sense of marriage, etc. So he was trying to show in very simplistic ways. He loved everybody. He didn't care if you were a leper or a prostitute. He wanted everyone to get along. He didn't think there was division. That was another thing that he was always trying to propel over and over and over. That we are brothers and sisters. God is not up here. We are the same. God is within our hearts. So it's like we keep looking out over there, going to get that, trying to look prettier, trying to get more money, trying to do this, trying to do that, trying to gain power. When realistically, you're never going to get to God that way. You're never going to get it. And I'm sorry I'm saying it that way, and that sounds really snobby, but you're not. You're just not going to reach through things. So and separation and division, like all of those things were exactly what Jesus was against. So it's like the fact that he came here and he was like a double-edged sword, exactly like he said. He ended up dividing like so many more people. And it's kind of ironic because we are in a dual system that somebody good creates divide. Somebody negative creates, like, I'll give you an example. Trump brought us together. Hitler brought us together, like in a weird messed up way, because it's like they do such evils that the good has to come out and go after it. Whereas when the good comes out, people's natural reaction is to be skeptical, to not believe, and to really persecute the people that are good, because maybe it makes their heart sing, maybe there's something in it that they just don't trust because it goes against like what they're brought up every day of their lives seeing. And Jesus was trying to show us, like, not to be scared of this world, not to be scared of this life. Like, there is another life after this. There is something else after this. And just focus on God and focus on your inner space. And he was really trying to purport that. Like, he was trying to make it seem men and women were equal. Any color was equal. Any walk of life was equal. And if you can find that equality and that understanding, like the brother and sister thing, like if we're all brothers and sisters, that means any of us can do it. Any of us can reach God, and God is not some hierarchy person up here. And Jesus was propelling all the time too, like get away from these people talking. Like, I mean, I'm a person talking, but I'm not asking you for money. Like these people that are just asking for money and saying, oh, miracles are going to happen. Yeah, they can make miracles because you allowed it, because you had the faith, you believed in it. It's really you just making the miracle. So it's like, it's so sad that people feel like they have to go outside of themselves to find what's inside. And I mean, all of us do this journey some way, some shape, somehow. I traveled, I drank, I did my stuff, but I realized no matter where I was always there. Me, I was wherever I was. So that's what I think he's trying to relay is like, no matter what you do, no matter what you search for, no matter, you're gonna end up in the same place, and you're gonna end up with yourself, and you gotta love yourself in order to love others. And once you love others and you find that meekness and richness in life, you get closer to God. He was kind of just trying his best to just be like, follow my lead, do what I do, and you'll reach her, him, her, it, all. And that's basically why I think Jesus is kick-ass, because he did something that was so difficult, like just to release all of his fears and to just go on that cross and do what he did, just to make a huge monumental push in our society, in a sense, because even till this day, 2,000 years, we're still following him, talking about him. So obviously what he did was monumental, so we cannot take away from that, genuinely. But what I do want to also point out, my son was going to get the candle, is that if we can start to adopt these things, and I'm telling you, like I got away from it, now I'm trying to return back to it. And if you're on your journey and you're not realizing where to start, I would say just read the Bible and really look at it with a humanistic viewpoint. Like forget all the fancy wording and hither he and all that, old English. Just go to the meat and potatoes of what he was trying to say and follow it. And if you could do that, I hope it brings you closer. I think the TV's in the background moving, so that means my son's getting out. But that was Jesus for today. I guess the next one I'll probably do is Kuan Yin. It's another one that touched my heart, and I hope this helps. Try to find your inner Jesus. That's all I can say. All right, bye-bye for now.